Welcome to this episode of the Film Florida podcast. My name is John Lux, and I'm the Executive Director of Film Florida. Before I introduce you to our guest, thanks for downloading this episode of the podcast. Be sure you subscribe, rate, and review the Film Florida podcast. The better our analytics are, the more likely others will find us. And don't forget, we have a Film Florida merchandise page. Visit teespring.com/stores/Film Florida to purchase Film Florida t-shirts, sweatshirts, and coffee mugs. Tony Ahedo is a graduate of Ringling College of Art and Design and the owner of Pretty Sweet Films. Tony is a filmmaker from the Tampa area who works as a director, DP, camera op, and AC. He's done everything from features to music videos to live events and commercials. We talked to Tony about some of his projects and filming in Florida. Here's my conversation with Tony Ahedo. Thanks for spending some time with us today, Tony.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me, John.
So I like to start with the origin story. So what initially drew you to the industry?
I think like a lot of people, I was just always a huge fan of movies growing up. You know, when I was a kid, I probably watched Jurassic Park like every single night. Yeah, I just couldn't get enough of it. When I was in high school, that's when I finally got access to a camera, and I started just kind of filming skateboarding videos and like little sketches with my friends, and just kind of snowballed after that.
Then you went to Ringling College of Art and Design, and Ringling is a great member of Film Florida, so we love them. What drew you to that school?
I had decided in high school, after taking a film history class, that it was what I wanted to do. I kind of saw the more artistic side to movies and analyzing, just the art behind film, and I decided that's what I wanted to do. So I started looking at a bunch of different film schools, and we have a couple of great ones here in Florida, and Ringling was actually one of the closer ones to where I'm from, St. Pete. And so when I went there, it was a lot smaller of a program than a lot of the other schools. The student body there is something of like a high school. So that was like really cool to see, because I knew, I was going into this profession that I really knew nothing about. I wasn't directing movies, and I didn't really know too much about it. And so I wanted to make sure I had the most time to learn, and I got the best education. Going there, the professors were all great, and they had all this really crazy equipment, and it seemed like I was going to get plenty of time to just work with the professors and utilize everything that they had.
And you started working professionally while you were at Ringling. Do you remember what your first quote unquote real job was in the industry and how you got it?
No, because I did start freelancing my freshman year. I was like, if I'm going to work, I want to work in the industry so I can keep learning and just, expanding on my trade. But I did start working at Home Shopping Network my freshman year in the lighting department, which was cool. I got to see kind of the TV side of that, and I would just do it in between classes. They had night shifts there because they're 24 hours. So I would just be setting lights up for 10, 12 hours, and really just, got more comfortable with being on set and just talking to people and, learning different lighting there. As I was doing that, I was doing a lot of just little videography jobs, probably undercharging, just to get experience. Then my sophomore year, I met one of my closest friends and collaborators still to this day, Winhell, who he was a senior at the time, and he had just started a production company in Miami called TriStark. And he had a bunch of different clients in there, so we would just drive to Miami, after class sometimes, and we would go shoot a music video, or we would go do, these really cool like custom car videos down there, and it's just been great. And Winhell and I, which has been really cool, is, we still work together every single day. We were talking yesterday, and we're currently doing this feature-length documentary over in Utah together. So.
And it seems like you've made a conscious decision after graduation to stay in Florida. Is that true? And if so, why?
Yeah. So after graduating, there's always kind of, that thought when you're a new grad, where should I go? What do I do? And while I was here in Florida, I still had a ton of my classmates that were sticking around in the area. And I was like, let me make something. I'll try to direct something. So my senior year, I had wrote a pilot, um, it's the pilot for my series, Barry Baker, Aspiring Serial Killer. And, I just asked my friends, I was like, look, I was like, I want to do this thing. And everybody was on board. So 3 months after graduating, we made the first episode. And since doing that, I feel like I've not gotten a break, and I've just kind of, that has connected me to so many different things. I met a lot of people on my first episode, where I would go work features later, and then I did a lot more episodes of my show. And so just kind of, being here in Florida, and just being, having the ability to make things whenever I wanted has been probably what has kept me here. I mean, also it's my home, and it's awesome.
And in looking at your credits on IMDb, for the last 7 or 8 years, you've stayed really busy, as you mentioned. So talk about your ability to find consistent work and what you kind of attribute that to, other than just good luck.
Yeah, so at Ringling, one of the things that they do, and they do it so well, is they kind of make you like a jack of all trades. And for me, when I was studying there, it wasn't until my senior year that I decided I wanted to direct. It's second semester senior year when I was like, let me give it a shot. So that whole time I was training to be a DP. I was learning camera, I was learning lighting, and that's kind of just saved me when it came to freelancing, because I was able just to mold into so many different jobs. I was able to gap, I was able to AC, and just being flexible and making relationships. That's kind of why I've been here. I would volunteer on like a lot of sets just to meet new people. If I had an extra day, I would just be like, yeah, sure, I'll come to set. And then, either I would be like, hey, do you want to come work on my project? Or, they would bring me on for maybe some paid work later. And that's, just kind of been my method. I don't use Production Hub. I don't really use any of those like kind of job searching sites. Everything has just been word of mouth and just relationship based. So I've been very fortunate to just have, consistent work here.
Tony, let's talk a little bit about your DP and your camera op work. Technology is changing by the minute. I mean, by the time we release this episode of the podcast, camera technology will have changed already. So I don't want to ask you specifically about this camera or that camera. I just want to talk a little bit in general. How do you keep up with the changes so you know that you're using the right tool for the right story on each of your projects?
I think at the end of the day, John, the tools tell the story, and they're just tools. And that's always been something that has been important for me to remember, just because I love researching cameras and lighting, and I probably spend way too much of my time doing that. And you can kind of get lost in that. I've been to NAB a few times, and it's crazy just to see how much things change every year. And it's only getting easier to make stuff, which is really cool. And I think about a lot of the equipment I have now and how I would have loved it 5 years ago. Um, but what's really fun is there's always new methods and equipment out there, and I think just being flexible and being open to that is essential to growth.
Based on your credits, you write, produce, direct, shoot, edit. In doing all of these different things, is it a matter of doing it all to help on a budget, or is there a specific, more creative reason why you wear so many hats on a lot of these projects?
I do most of the things in my projects because I know what I want most of the time. Don't get me wrong, there's tons of people I collaborate with as producers and editors, but a lot of times they can't be on every single project, and I wanted to make sure that I'm just not sitting on something because I don't have somebody to help me with it. So again, Ringling making you like a jack of all trades. I've got a pretty good education on how to do most of these jobs. Directing is what my focus is on, and I've been fortunate in the past like year or two to do it a lot narratively and commercially. So I'm definitely kind of narrowing in just on that. But when it comes to like writing, I've really only ever kind of just written for myself, and I like to do that because when I'm writing, I'm making a blueprint for when I direct. So sometimes people read my script and they may not see what I'm seeing, because I'm writing keywords that I'll remember when I'm directing. And then, yeah, editing, it's, I feel like it's usually my job just to clean it up and just to, again, rewrite the story one last time. So I've always just kind of felt that responsibility to kind of put my own spin on it. And then, yeah, the only job that I guess, I've kind of just fell into is producer. And that's just, I needed to get things done. And, I didn't want to wait to start producing. So I just started doing it. Being like this attached and like wearing multiple hats, it really does make you invested into what you're making. And, I've been able to see, just how I've grown as a writer, as an editor, as a director, in, the projects that I've done over the years.
Tony, you've mentioned Ringling a couple of times, and so I want to go back there a little bit. Of course, you can't speak to what other colleges or universities, do for their students and what they teach them. But looking back at your time at Ringling, besides what you've mentioned, which is that they kind of made you learn a lot of different skills that are very helpful going forward. What's the biggest takeaway from Ringling? What do you kind of look back on and think that maybe you didn't think it was that big of a deal at the time, but now that you're out in the professional field, you understand a little bit more of what they were getting at back then?
Biggest takeaway probably for me from Ringling is just the people. I mean, my classmates that I have and, my friends and my collaborators are still my collaborators to this day. The two producers on my recent feature, I went to Ringling with, Nicole Fernandez and Harrison Sagner. I mean, they're close friends and, they've been with me through a bunch of these projects. I mentioned my friend Winhell earlier, and, we've worked commercially since, for the past 7-8 years now. Just like meeting all these different people and, everybody there is just so talented. And that's probably been the biggest takeaway is just, it's the people, it's the relationship. So, I say that for anybody that's going to any film school, make sure you are continuing to, develop those relationships with your peers because they're going to be who you work with for the next 10 years, 20 years. And I'm definitely going to keep working with these people probably for the rest of my career. So that's probably, the best thing about Ringling for me.
You mentioned that you recently finished a feature that you directed and you wrote. Tell us about that.
It's a coming of age drama called Icon. It follows the main character of the story, Sam. He's a teenager in high school and he gets his girlfriend pregnant. While figuring out what to do, he starts to wonder about his own dad who has been absent in his life. So he goes out to look for him, and I don't want to spoil the story too much, but that's kind of what happens. And it's definitely artsy and it has a lot of drama, which is a shift from what I normally do in comedy or horror. It's a film that, again, I'm going to drop Ringling, has been in development since I was at Ringling. I made the short film version of this as my thesis at Ringling. So they gave me an opportunity there, and I kind of used a weekend that they just had free with a camera to make like a spec short. So when I got to here to making the feature, I knew what I wanted to do. It's a very personal story for me. So I've put a lot into it in the last 5 years. In the story, I used a lot of things that I had with my own dad in the film. There's a lot of specific scenes and memories that I recreated from the 90s that I had with my dad. So it's really cool to, be able to shoot in St. Pete, some of the similar locations and putting them in 90s clothing and just kind of recreating these memories, just making it all happen. It's definitely like, the first film I can say that as an artistic expression for me. I got a lot of my voice out in the movie and, I could explore some really important things in my life. But yeah, we shot 23 days here in Florida, mostly in St. Pete. it was a movie that needed to be made here. Like I was saying earlier, I had my DP Harrison and my producer Nicole, who were classmates of mine at Ringling, both helped make this thing happen. And the community that I've just had and support I've received in making this has just been, awesome, whether it's the Film Commission or whether it's, random businesses or anybody that comes to set. It's been great. We're all Florida locals, and this is definitely a Florida movie.
And besides this film, where can people see some of your other work?
Kind of all over. My series, Barry Baker, Aspiring Serial Killer, it's on Amazon Prime, free. We'll have some more episodes popping up later on in 2020. And most of my shorts are on my Vimeo page. Some of them are still going through festival circuits, so they're not public yet. And then, any of my commercial work, it's just kind of everywhere. I've done TV, I've done lots of things that are on YouTube, as in like music videos and things like that. People can check out my production company, Pretty Sweet Films. I have some work on there, and Icon is the thing I'm working on now, and that'll be available probably in 2021 after we go through post and all the festivals. So definitely, be on the lookout for that.
Well, Tony, thanks for being on the podcast today. We really appreciate you sharing your expertise and your advice. And like I said at the beginning, we love Ringling, so anything we can do to give them some extra shout outs, we really appreciate it and enjoy doing that. So thanks for being on the podcast today.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Film Florida podcast. If you're not already a member of Film Florida, please consider joining at filmflorida.org. And visit our social media pages on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Check out the Film Florida merchandise at teespring.com/stores/filmflorida. And please remember to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast.